Morning, everyone. It's the first session of the day, and so that's I think is a great thing for the people present on the stage to see a lot of energy and enthusiasm from the participating audience here. Today we are going to cover a very important topic, which is on customer, how to build your customer experience, how to bring in excellency in that. Basically, customer experience is a very important area of business, and a lot of organizations are striving really hard to improvise and to build robust systems around this. Also, with technology, advent of technology, there are a lot of things that are upcoming. There are a lot of things that have changed over last decade. So we'll get to know and we'll get to hear about a lot of those stuff. So maybe for next 30 minutes, we'll dwell deep into this topic. With me, we have great panelists who will be sharing their thoughts about how CX in a whole has been going through a journey. Yep. So Sujit, my first question to you is, in banking, we have seen that how the banking world has evolved in the last decade, especially with technology coming in, a lot of changes happening. And banking is fairly complicated as well because it has a lot of touch points, like it has got brick and mortar branches, then it has got a lot of contact center agencies which work. The customer can reach to services over a website, maybe through digital apps like WhatsApp, RCS, then you have channels like SMS, email, voice, so that adds a lot of complexity. So how do you think you try to balance the CX across all the channels, that there is an uniformity maintained for any customer trying to reach you through any touch points?
Yeah, thank you. An excellent question. Good morning, everybody here. Warm good morning to all the people here who have taken time out from your office and come to listen to all these panels. I hope we do a good job in being able to at least share some insights. So on the question about CX in banks, just a bit of a context. Most of you will know it, but even then I'm taking the liberty of adding the context. So in a bank, we will have 15, 20, 25 different lines of business which are very, very distinct from each other. I'm saying a savings account from a current account to a home loan to an education loan to a credit card. They're as different as any industry can be. So it's different product lines, different systems. My CIO was telling me for some change that we were doing, he runs about more than 700 applications within the bank. 700 applications within the bank. So that's the complexity that happens because of the number of lines of business, and there are retail, SME and wholesale banking customers, Indian operations, international operations. So it's a pretty wide network of things that the bank has to manage. So coming back to the specific question on CX, I believe that in a bank, a CX will be a combination of our product offerings, our service offerings at various touch points. It will be a combination of these two, and also the way we interact with the customer at various touch points. It will be a combination of all these three. Now, given the fact that we have multiple touch points, technology, branch, employee, call center, all put together, and across multiple products for the same customer, the most important thing that banks have realized is that you will need to have a central analytics and intelligence engine to be able to have a one view of the customer. What I'm trying to say is that looking at your savings account transactions and your other behavior, we have to generate offerings for you on the asset side, which means how much of a loan are you eligible, how much of a home loan, how much of a personal loan, what credit card are you eligible, what is the right time to offer you a Forex card, what is the right time to offer an education loan for your child. So all of these are dependent upon the customer's data and the interactions that the customer has with us. So if there is a good central analytics engine which is looking at generating insights and the relevant offerings for each individual customer across product lines, that is in my opinion, the number one requirement that a bank should have. A good engine which is able to generate these. And then comes the interaction as various touch points, which means that if a customer walks into any of our branch or meets an RM who's also equipped with the technology and a tab, or goes to a call center, or opens our app, he should be able to see the same offerings, the same offerings across all products. That is the most important thing. This is a proactive communication. It is extremely important also to be able to give a one view of the customer when the customer is calling up. For example, if you have come to us with a query at a branch, and after 2 days, if you call up the call center person should know that 48 hours back you had this query. So essentially what I'm trying to say, it's a central analytics engine which will have to play a role of getting a holistic view of the customer and offering it across service interactions, across new offerings, across products, across all channels. If this is not done, it will get disparate and the customer will get frustrated because customer will say that I get X view in X channel for X product and I get a completely different response for a Y product and a Y channel. So that can be frustrating. So it's very important to be able to get a single insight and then use that engine to disseminate all interactions.
I agree. I mean, we at Infobip, we manage a lot of aspects around channel business, and BFSI is one sector where we keep getting a lot of change management requests because they want to maintain that uniformity. Products keep changing, evolving, and the same has to be conveyed across through all the channels of communication. So to maintain that uniformity.
All channels, all employees, 100,000 employees. Today, you may go to a branch and meet anybody in that branch. Each person should have access to the same information.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's pretty complex. And yeah, so we're talking about BFSI. Mohit, we know that mobile wallet business has evolved over the last few years, and MobiKwik is one of the leading brands in that space. Right. How do you think a mobile wallet app ensures seamless payment experience for users when it is integrated with retail providers? Basically, because retailers are external stakeholders. So how do you maintain that experience, and what do you do to drive smooth integrations with your partners?
Sure. So thanks, Nikhil, for that question. I hope everyone can hear me at the back as well. Great. So, what Sujit was just talking about, I think there's a lot of synergy with what we're doing because fintech players are like MobiKwik are more and more becoming like little small digitized banks within the app. Mm-hmm. So just as you were talking about, several touch points on the banking side, I mean, a lot of people would be very surprised. It's not just digital touch points. You have a lot of physical touch points at retail outlets for people like MobiKwik. And I'm sure that everyone out here has paid via a QR code sometime in the last 6 months. So that's actually a physical touch point where a consumer gets to see a MobiKwik brand written. Now, on the QR code, it's a MobiKwik brand written, but UPI is accepted, so you can use any app that supports UPI. You can use a bank app, you can use Google Pay, you can use a Paytm, you can use any any app that supports UPI. But that's the first interaction that you have, the first touch point, which is actually a physical touch point, because the user is able to see the QR code in front of them. Similarly, again, there are many digital touch points for online merchants. If you have ordered via Zomato and you choose the wallet option, you will see the MobiKwik wallet. And that's a digital touch point because even if you've not registered with the MobiKwik app, let's say we are running an offer on that week that you decide to do, and you look at the offers section. And again, like Sujit said, we do a lot of data analytics, and we try and cluster users into, see, every user is unique. But you try your best to use the data of how users transact and how they interact with the application to cluster them into few segments. So let's say somebody comes on Zomato and they see a deal in that week that we're offering, which is that if you're a new user, you will get a 25% discount up to this much if you buy using the MobiKwik wallet. Immediately, I'll acquire a new customer. Now, my data analytics engine knows that he's registered using a certain deal. And that was a very seamless experience for him because he used the application, he paid for his Zomato, he got his food, but not just that, he got a 25% discount on it. Now, let's say that he's totally forgotten about the fact that he's used this app. How do I make it seamless for him even in the future? My data analytics engine at some point will say, you know what, this customer has been inactive for the last 3 months. But there are these 3 new retention offers running on Zomato and Swiggy and maybe 3 other food apps. I know that this user's ordered before. let me send out a push notification to this user.
Okay.
And this could be via the app. This could be a push notification via the app. This could be via RCS. This could be via WhatsApp. But the idea is to stay connected with that customer, to offer him that integrated experience where he knows, where I know that he's belonging to a certain cluster. He's ordered food before. He was keen on a deal before. Great. Whenever I have such an offer available, I'm going to send that communication to the customer. That's one way where he feels, the journey and the integration seamless. Similarly, with the offline merchants, if a person is buying at a Kirana store and I know that now he's gone to a Kirana store in another state, I have the latitude and longitude. I can actually give him offers which are localized to that state based on what he's purchased in the past. So seamless experience on retail is both physical as well as digital. And to make sure that that's a seamless experience, again, we use a lot of data in the background to make sure that, one, he has a seamless experience when he starts the journey, and two, it's an integrated experience so that he's constantly retained within that, the retention cohort that we have for that user base.
Understood. Understood. So right now we are hearing a buzzword called hyper-personalization. While we are trying to, have this uniformity maintained across all customer segments, but we also want to give a personalized touch to our consumers. How do you think that MobiKwik is leveraging hyper-personalization to tailor its services and offering to both enterprise and individual customers?
So that is actually exactly what we talk about every single day at MobiKwik, and I'm sure that's what all the panelists talk about every single day, is how do you further personalize the experience, and not just that, how do you make discovery of new products easier for the consumer? So just say, so for instance, when you go to a bank, you can create an FD, you can get a personal loan. There's hundreds of services that you can get from the bank. Similarly, looking at the pattern of usage, today I have the ability to offer new to credit users both buy now, pay later, as well as a personal loan, which they would not have been able to do because they don't have a credit bureau score or they have no interaction with the credit bureau. So I think in this manner, we're able to personalize even more because the reach that fintech players have today, where people are actually spending on small Kirana stores. So that's one part of the story. That's the user personalization bit. But we not only cater to the demand side, but also the supply side. So for instance, a merchant, a small Kirana store owner, let's say that I know that he transacts for 10,000 rupees every day. I have the ability now to personalize his experience and say, here's an offer for you. If you need cash as an advance, I will give you a 50,000 rupee personal loan, which you can pay back on a daily EMI.
Okay.
So we've introduced an EDI, forget EMI, you have an EDI concept. I know he does a minimum of 10,000 rupees a day. And in that digital journey, he says, yes, I want 50,000. Not just that, but you can deduct 5,000 rupees every day from me.
That's basis the data that's available.
That's absolutely basis the data.
So that's an example of hyper-personalization.
That's an example of hyper-personalization because I know the amount that is, one, I know the risk. So personalization of even the risk categorization of this merchant. Two, how much do I believe from the data that I've seen he will need to make sure that he's got a constant cash flow.
Understood.
So it's both on the user as well, so demand and supply side hyper-personalization. And trust me when I say this, this is all we talk about day in, day out, because this is how we even cross-sell our services on the call center when people call in on our call center.
I'm sure. Yes.
So hyper-personalization every single day of our lives.
Thanks, Mohit. Tanmaiy, today another buzzword that we are hearing is AI. In fact, at Infobip, our own SaaS solutions now are Gen AI backed. When you have a chatbot coming in backed up with Gen AI, which not only understands, say, English as a language, but Hinglish, basically, So because today consumers, we have seen, they like to speak in language of their own choice, not the choice that the brand is giving them. So how do you see this Gen AI specifically impacting the landscape of digital transformation in India, and how do you think Salesforce is enabling Indian businesses to leverage this technology from CX perspective?
Sure, thanks for that question. Firstly, warm good morning to all. So yes, you're right. There have been a couple of these buzzwords that keep coming when we look at technology as a landscape, right? There has been Gen AI. For folks who've been longer, far along in this industry, right? Mobile was something which was big, mobile apps. Data suddenly became data as the new oil. That was another part which was there. And today we are in the age of Gen AI or AI, if I have to generalize. I would say AI, for that matter, is not something new, right? If I have to specifically talk about Salesforce, I think, and many other tech organizations, I think the journey on AI started somewhere way back around in 2016. And most of the time, AI during that time was predictive, right? So the ability using your data to predict a certain outcome. These outcomes could be, what is the propensity of a particular prospect to convert, right? What are the chances that a customer that you're interacting with would probably churn out? What are the chances that a given opportunity that you're pursuing would eventually close in a specific time that, So forecasting, any of the teams which were more customer facing, I think that's where we used predictive part of the AI, more often. Come today, it's all generative, right? We've kind of figured or discovered this kryptonite, which is now able to generate certain things for, all of us, right? So generating in terms of it could be content, it could be the interactions that you would have, it would be the offers like, most of us are speaking about here, right? Which is, or how do you personalize these offers or kind of make it hyper-personalized? So that is, I think, the advent and the possibilities how you could use generative AI are tremendous. It's not only the marketing piece. When I say marketing, it's not only where you're trying to woo a customer, trying to get his attention, trying to bring him, onto your product or services that you're selling, but that the whole aspect of Gen AI kind of stays throughout the entire customer journey that is there, right? So whether it is a customer trying to buy something over a commerce website which you guys are running, it could be a service interaction that you're having, with one of the agents. How generative AI kind of comes in and falls in place is something which more organizations are kind of, looking at. The other funny part, I think most of us would have used chatbots or would have used, Chat GPT in our personal usage. It could be, coming up with a trip or an itinerary for your visit to Goa or any international destinations that you would have. But when it comes to enterprises, I think it's a little tricky, right? There are certain, I wouldn't say issues, but challenges in and around data security, right? Biasness of the AI engine, hallucinations that the LLM model could possibly, come up with. And those are, real time or, those are real problems which enterprises do look across, in solving and, coming up or, using the Gen AI piece at its best. So I think at Salesforce, we are also trying to solve these issues to ensure that we are responsibly using generative AI to give the right outcomes to predict or to help agents or all touch points wherever you're interacting with the customers. The other part, whenever we look at Gen AI, I largely would want to say that you could divide it into three aspects. One is the UI itself of the generative AI that you're using, right? You would have used a chatbot that looks different. Any co-pilots that others are offering, the UI or the first interaction that you use could be different, right? And AI use cases could be many, right? It could be more of natural language processing. It could be image processing basis of specific picture, how you could derive certain insights. The second part after UI often comes is the language model, the LLM, right? For all the non-techies or techies, I'm assuming LLM is what we are aware of. It's that particular intelligence that, that model will bring. It will look at your data and tell you or generate certain output for you. So there are many language LLMs in the market itself. And more often than ever, customers are on these crossroads, whether to develop an LLM by themselves or to use, the LLMs that are aware or available in the market. So again, which LLM do you use, or do you really invest in creating an LLM for yourself? It varies from customer to customer. And the third and important aspect, which I think most of the panel members out here are talking, is the data that you use to run these LLMs, right? And that's going to be one of the most important aspect when you look at it more from an enterprise perspective, right? How you're able to ground or contextualize AI when it comes to generating all of these outcomes for you. So again, as I said, right, three main parts, and that's how Salesforce looks at it as well. Ensuring the UI is in place. LLMs, we can possibly have places where you can bring your own language model. So you have the freedom and agility to use any language models if you've invested in creating one, or pick something off the shelf and start using this. But at the same time, ensuring that we are grounding that, we are, trust as a factor. We are ensuring that the data remains with you. You're not allowing these LLMs to learn this basis or on the data that you as an organization has come up with. So the third and most important part is data. I think with these three in place, that's how Salesforce, or possibly I think the entire advent of GenAI is possibly coming. Again, not restricting to one aspect like marketing, but across all customer touch points that we look at.
Okay. So
I'll just come in if you don't mind. You were talking about hyper-personalization. So while people from the tech sector can definitely talk about the models, I'm not qualified to talk about them. But I just wanted to give an example of hyper-personalization that we launched a few years back. Some of the audience may already be aware of it. Other banks are also offering now, but we were the first to do it. So what we realize is that people want very high credit limits. In case of an emergency, you may want to use a high credit limit on your credit card. It's also a feel-good thing, right, that I have a high credit limit. But at the same time, people are also worried about cyber frauds. So what we said is, okay, we'll give you a limit, let's say 30 lakhs or 40 lakhs. But on your iMobile app, you can go and adjust it whatever you wanted. And you can, up to that, subject to that higher limit, you can bring it down, increase it on a daily basis, just with a swipe of a button, right? Not only that, some people, the insight we got is some people are saying, I'm comfortable to keep a high limit in India, but I want to block off international transactions because a lot of the fraudsters, when they get the card details, they swipe it internationally. So we said, okay, you can block off international, you can block off online international, because when fraudsters get access to the data, they use it online. So basically what we said is that you can adjust your limit, you can adjust and control the usage of the card wherever you want and whichever channel you want, locally or internationally, right? And that was a huge hit. So, so what I'm trying to say is that hyper-personalization is extremely important. People want it. And if it is relevant for the customer, people love it and people start using it. And a lot of people are using it now. A lot of our customers are using it now.
Okay. So on this point, I just wanted to ask one question in terms of, don't you think hyper-personalization makes, it like creates barriers in terms of people saying that, okay, I don't get this, you get this, and then explaining that to them becomes slightly difficult, that why you are offered an X thing and why someone is being offered a Y thing. So do you think situation like that can arise maybe in future when things get more personalized?
Data privacy, I think, should be an utmost importance to all organizations. Like for example, if we 5 of us are customers of a particular bank, ICICI Bank or any other bank, all our offerings to us for our loans will be different, right? I may have an offering to the last 1,000 rupees, which will be different from all 4 of you, right? But the point is, none of you will know my offer and I will not know yours. So if there is data confidentiality that is maintained, and I don't think that to be an issue. In fact, that's an advantage because every customer gets what he or she deserves, what he or she wants, basis her interests and preferences. So I think it's only a good thing. And it's not that it's a public database that is put up saying this is what you will get, this is what your neighbor will get, therefore you'll compare and feel upset. It's confidential, so it's relevant, it's targeted, it's meant for the person, so I think it's pretty good. One small, sorry, but I'll just take one small other example. I think you also referred to it from MobiKwik, is that hyper-personalization also depends upon the location. Why should you give the same offers to somebody who's in Mumbai versus in Delhi? Suppose you're in Palladium, you should get offers relevant to Palladium versus if you're in Thane, you should get. So what I'm trying to say is that hyper-personalization is completely contextualized to the person. There are more reasons for people to feel happy about it than feel upset. I feel.
Okay.
Anymore.
I know, and just to add to that, I mean, the whole concept behind the hyper-personalization is that I'm making it easier. The CX for the consumer, the entire experience, is being made easier based on their usage patterns, location, and various other factors. And there's always a fallback of a default process. So if you feel, and one of the things you were saying was, won't people get confused with all of these options available? It's all right, there are default options which are anyway pre-selected. But it's now the onus is on the consumer as well as the app. So the app to notify about hyper-personalization and the user to configure wherever required, if required. So if I have to give an offer for a location you're in, there's no configuration required. But for instance, if I want to configure my daily limit when I'm traveling outside of India, absolutely I can configure it myself. So it's just an additional convenience to the consumer.
Understood. Thanks.
Sorry, I just want to intrude this entire conversation of hyper-personalization just for a second, because I have to introduce Mr. Kinjal Shah, who's the head of Digital Business Analytics and Marketing from Kotak Mutual Fund. We welcome you to the panel discussion. And over to you guys again.
So, Kinjal, I have a straight, I'll bounce a question to you.
I'm so sorry for being late, and
No,
thanks
no
for
problem.
waiting. Thank you so
We
much.
understand, Mumbai and traffic in Mumbai, I mean, most of us have experienced it. So, Kinjal, can you help the audience understand, like, in terms of customization or trying to bring a balance? Like, for example, we know there are a lot of entities with Kotak. Like, you have a Kotak Bank, you have Kotak Insurance, you have Kotak Mutual Fund. How difficult it is to maintain a seamless experience across all your group companies as well? Because within a company, like we have heard, there are a lot of strategies that you can build on. But when it comes to managing things across group companies, because there will be individual teams in each company working, the vision, the mindset might be different. So how difficult do you think it is to manage, balance that out?
Firstly, we need to understand the fact that, all these financial services, when they have a larger group and they have subsidiaries, everyone operates as an independent company, right? There is very limited scope of data sharing, or the entire hyper-personalization at a group level is practically not possible. Only if the entity is established in a way where the data sharing is possible, that can be taken care of. Otherwise, sharing data, or, me, for example, I'm working for mutual fund. I won't be in a position to leverage on bank's data, or bank cannot leverage on my data. So in the industry, in banking and financial services, which is very tightly regulated, right? So data sharing is practically impossible. So here, every individual company will have to focus on their customer base, and based on that, the personalization will come into picture. That's the first point in terms of how do we maintain a seamless approach at a group level. The answer remains no for most of the companies in BFSI space, unless the structure is something very, very different, where all the entities fold into one, which is very difficult considering the regulators are different. Let's take mutual fund has SEBI, IRDA is there for insurance, bank is RBI, so practically it's impossible in India at this stage in terms of hyper-personalization. So then it comes to, what you do with your customer. I think what Sujit was also mentioning, every unit will have to figure out their own way and connect with the customer. All we try to do is map the touch points, understand the consumer pain point, and the single point which we need to understand is bring the teams together. That's very critical in hyper-personalization, because if each and every team tries to prove their point, that is not possible, right? So that's something very, very complex, because hyper-personalization is overrated sometimes, because when you work in an organization, there are different teams, and if they work in silos, that starts failing, right? So that's something which one needs to understand and, get the team together to work for the common goal of serving the customer for hyper-personalization, or any matter for that in terms of integrated approach. That's something which will play a role. So that's how I would try to put it.
Okay, thank you. Now, so we heard that how AI is playing a part, how hyper-personalization is being done. So there is a lot of data churning or slicing, dicing that is required, basically. So how do you think, Kinjal, especially from a BFSI standpoint, the data privacy and security aspect is being managed?
So I guess data privacy and security is a very complex subject, and I think most of the players in BFSI are investing heavily on that particular piece, where the data is not being, uploaded somewhere, or, everything is getting hashed correctly. Because uploading a data which is unhashed is like, sending your bank account details to someone, right? So certain things are being taken care of very rigorously these days. Maybe if you were talking few years back, hashing data was not so a popular concept and people were not aware about it. A lot of people are still not aware about, that while, using all this marketing automation tool, you need to, hash your data before sending it over there. And that's very, very complex, right? So a lot of organization in BFSI space, even today, are not into hashing the data. So practically your data is getting uploaded to a third-party cloud and it's available. And if you might have all possible checkpoints in your organization to protect the leak, but the services which you are using could end up, leaking your data. So that's where I think IT security will play a big role, and we need to ensure that each and every player with whom we are operating, we are able to do the due diligence. And most of the thing we should try to figure out that it is on a private cloud rather than a public cloud, and it is controlled by the organization and not the vendor. That's how the data security can be controlled in far more controlled environment rather than leaving it on vendors. I think this whole vendor thing is very, very complex because, senior management or someone who understands the whole importance of IT security may be aware about the concept. But the team who is operating on the ground, right, in the pressure of delivery, they may end up with tying with a partner, not hashing the data, and that's where the mess happens. Okay. And your data gets uploaded at a wrong place, and that's where it's available to the world. So I think this is where one needs to start getting into it.
If I may add, so actually there are a lot of regulatory bodies and a lot of forums that are addressing this. So PCI DSS, RBI, various forums are addressing this. Tokenization has happened for cards. Also a lot of internal audits that are being prescribed, SAR audits, etc. All of these measure the level of security that you have with your third parties. So I think slowly, even in the BFSI sector, either through regulation, through third-party recommendations, or through internal audits, in some way we are making sure that there is, as Kinjal said, hashing off or encryption of the data that is sent across. Just tokenization is one recent example. Now your cards, nobody can store your cards. It's always going to be tokenized and passed on in the ecosystem, and PCI DSS checks this, RBI checks this, everybody checks this. So, stuff like this is just going to be more pervasive going forward.
Yep. So, like we understood, there is, CX is fairly complicated in terms of it requires a lot of effort, time, and investments also. So, Sujit, if you can help us understand, how do you measure the ROI on your CX investments, basically? Because now that you've built in a system, an ecosystem to run a seamless CX program, now how do you measure an ROI on that?
So I can answer this question at two levels. One is any system that is implemented on the tech side or analytics or marketing side, we look at an ROI of that system, of the investment that is going in. Each system will have a CapEx and an OpEx. So right now we are in the phase of a massive CDP implementation, and we are using one of the large CDP players for it, and we are taking the entire stack of it. And obviously a lot of rigorous analysis has happened, a lot of scenarios have played out in terms of what is the investment, what is the CapEx, what's going to be the recurring OpEx, and what is the expected gains of it. So that is something that is done by all the teams. That is at one specific project level. But I would say the bigger benefit to a large organization or a large bank will be that apart from measuring the ROI for each CX, it is also the consolidated value that we are giving to the customer. What I'm trying to explain is that, let's say every upgrade that we do in our internet banking or every upgrade that we do in our mobile banking, it costs a lot of money, right? Maybe hundreds of crores once there is a platform upgrade. And every 6 months there are features upgrades. They also cost a lot of money. It may not make sense to try and look at the ROI of each, because it's cumulatively these upgrades, these new facilities, new features, new analytics is giving a value add to the customer, which is making the customer more sticky in the relationship with us, making the customer more loyal, and is helping in cross-sell and upsell, right? Because if you're going to acquire a customer, a young millennial at the age of 25, and we expect him or her to be with us for the next 50 years, and maybe have 8 or 10 products, what you need is ultimate loyalty and satisfaction of the customer. You need to keep delivering. So as I said, program managers, marketing managers, analytics managers, IT managers will and should do ROI of the investments that they are doing. But senior management, top management, a board of a bank, and I'm not on the board, but the board of a bank, when they look at it, I'm sure they're looking at it differently also. They're saying, what is the value we are getting from the full lifetime of a customer, which will include several, maybe hundreds of CX interventions, hundreds of technologies over the life cycle. And that is where the real value comes in. So it has to be measured holistically and at the ground level, both. That's what I'm trying to say.
Understood. Understood. So like you touch based on the customer lifecycle value, the LTV part of it. So Tanmaiy, how do you think, because there are different types of, like you cater to different companies, right? Salesforce caters to different companies. There are marketing companies, there are sales-driven companies, there are e-com companies, and there are startups, there are MNCs. How do you think you balance out your CX strategies across the entire batch of customers that you have?
True, true. So, yep, I think fair point. Whether it's a startup, out of Bangalore, Noida, or it's, one of those big Fortune 500 companies, I think all of them are trying to do one of those two things, right? Increase their top line, get more customers, get more revenue out of every interaction that they have, or reduce the cost, right? Try and see things like productivity, try and see things like how you could do more with less. So it's in between these two things that most organizations are focusing. Now the point of ROI as well, right? And how do we ensure that we are giving or we are bringing value across these different plethora of customers, right? Different industries, different size of employee strength, different journey at which they would be at their progressive stage. So it's largely going to be a derivative of what that particular organization at that particular stage is trying to achieve, right? So say, for example, a small startup might just be more interested in getting more and more customers, right? As compared to a bigger bank who does have, or bigger bank or any bigger enterprise, right? Who does have the customer base already in place, but now they want to ensure that how they can get more and more value from the same customer. So this kind of differs, or this kind of, plays in as an important part of how do you define and how do you ensure that which tech do you use to, figure out which lever do you want to see it moving, right? Whether it's customer experience, whether it's customer satisfaction, NPS, customer life cycle, employee productivity, all these could be different levers or KRAs that I often feel, which organizations would probably be looking at.
Okay. So in the same breath, maybe Kinjal, if you can help us understand that we have different set of customer segments wherein you have millennials, you have baby boomers, you have Gen Zs, and everyone's preferences are different. So how does one strategy cut across all your customer segments?
See, typically, one strategy will not fit for all the segments that we are talking, right? Each cohort has a very different behavior. And each cohort is consuming different social media, right? So 45 plus is definitely still there on Facebook, whereas if you look at below 45, a lot of people are not even logging into FB these days, right? So, and we need to keep identifying, each cohort's pattern, and based on that, I think we'll have to define the strategy. One fit for all, I think it's something which is not going to work. It works to an extent when the product is kind of a pull product for each category. So, in BFSI, yes, there are certain products which will fit for all. So that's where the communication could be as simple as possible. That's something which will play a role. But otherwise, hyper-targeting, you have to do, personalization for each cohort separately. Otherwise, it will fail because, what will interest me will definitely not interest somebody with a higher age bracket. So I think there is no one fit for all these days. With digital, it has become possible. So I think that's something which one needs to keep focusing. One fit for all will work for certain products, and we should keep doing that, right? I mean, traditional media is still not out, right? We will still keep seeing hoardings in market. We'll still see TVCs in market. So that is something where, my communication will play a role in terms of the traditional media. So I think I try to put it correctly in terms of right balance, we need to focus in terms of which markets you want to lift through personalization. And if something which we want to go at scale, you will have to fit one kind of a communication. That's how it works for all of us.
Understood. Thanks.